So here's my model, low res. I've got, where is it? Window, rendering, hypershade. Off to the side here. This guy has a displacement map already. Let's just go. There we go. So I've already assigned a displacement map. I've already got that in, and so we're using just one of those guys in there. One of the key things to note, alpha gain and alpha offset. Right now they're basic settings, but this is really important. Alpha offset is negative half alpha gain. That's really important in this version of Maya. That's one of those things that's subject to change. And since I did not flip the texture, I went into my place 2D node and repeat U and V. The V is set to -1, and that's just a little Maya trick that flips it for you, so you don't have to do that. It's a little annoying to do though, so inside of ZBrush you can just click that flip V button. When I set this up, I didn't do that though. So otherwise we've got a pretty basic setup. The material doesn't have anything special. I have Mental Ray active. The model does have, in terms of rendering editor, Mental Ray. It does have, come on, everything's showing up on my other screen here. It does have a displacement tessellation and a subdivision tessellation, okay, and that's just part of my Mental Ray from this version. I can go in and edit it, and I can show you. The parametric set to 4, and parametric is set to 6 for subdivisions. This is actually really important. I use parametric because parametric just subdivides the entire model. I'm going to set this really low, and I'll just build that up for you. So we're going to position this, and I'm just going to do a quick render, which of course is off camera. So I'll move that over and see what happens. Okay. Notice how, oh, way to go, Ryan. Auto region is on. There. Notice how low res that is? You know, it almost looks like a game model, right? That has to do with the approximation, the subdivision approximation. So I'll come back in here, I'll set this to 6. Re-render that. And you're suddenly going to be looking a lot cleaner, a lot smoother. But this is where this trick that I learned from ILM was really neat, because this calibration device allows you to kind of set one of those really problematic parts of this whole process, which is the alpha gain and alpha offset. So this is going to introduce you to one of the fundamental problems. This is one of the fundamental problems of displacement maps between ZBrush and Maya, or really ZBrush in any application. Since ZBrush is a different world space, okay, we're going back to that scale issue we started this whole day off with. Since it's a different world space, it's a totally different unit of measurement, you have to have something that goes between the ZB units and translates to Maya units. You just have to, okay? For 16 bits, you have to. If it's 32-bit, then there's no real scale. It's 32-bit has essentially an infinite amount of information, so it's able to calculate real-world units and hold them, and there's no problem. 16-bit has a limit, so if your model is like a mile long, but inside of ZBrush it's only, 5 centimeters, you got to have something that takes 5 centimeters and then unpacks it to let's just say 1 foot. Why am I going to really mess with these units of measurements? Let's say unpacks it to 50 centimeters inside of Maya. So you have to have a scale factor. In this case, the scale factor would be 10. And if you look over here, you see an intensity slider. That intensity slider is designed to be That's scale factor. It's not always accurate. Never has been. I used to do this lecture called Displacement Maps, the Divine Comedy. The path of 16 displacement maps was essentially the descent into hell, where you don't know what the scale factor is, and you're constantly trying to find it. Now, once you have reached enlightenment, you get out through, the out of hell, up to Beatrice's arms, and you are in 32-bit displacement heaven, where this number is not a big issue. A lot of this is coalescing and getting better, but it's still a bit of a divine comedy. It still has its own unique twist to things. So I'm going to just plug this number of 1.2 into Maya. Alpha gain 1.2. And I'm going to go negative 0.6. Always negative half. Render it. Do these guys touch? No, they don't. But look at that. I think we're on to something. It's half. Kind of half. So I'm going to look inside of ZBrush for anything that could indicate half. Oh my God, look at that. I don't know if this is true, but what if you take the scale factor and you multiply it, or I should say your displacement intensity, and you multiply it by your scale factor? Could you get something? Maybe. I don't know. You have to do tests to see if it works, but let's try it here. And I would not consider this test to be conclusive, but 1.2 times basically 2, so 2.4, negative 1.2, voila, render it. All right, it's looking good. Let's just take it a little step further. 2.5, negative 1.25. This is, I did this test earlier, and this is when you see it break through a little bit. Right here in this corner. This is when you know you're right. Okay, something's breaking down here, and I have a tendency to think that either it's reaching some kind of limit, or there's not enough in terms of the approximation, but I'm not going to sweat that one right now. All I know is that it's doing a decent job of moving itself up. So we have a scale factor, 2.5, right around there. And we also have a simple mathematical connection. Displacement map times scale. I'm sure size affects that somehow. But we don't really need to complicate our lives that much. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. I'm not going to render 32-bit displacements because it's a process. And it's more of a Maya process, not a ZBrush certification process. But I do want to talk a little bit more about displacement maps before I turn this over to Nate to talk about normal maps. This mid is important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about mid. I'm going to talk a little bit about smooth UV. What is this scale factor here, Scale factor for 32-bit maps. So basically, this scale factor for 32-bit, you're going to set it at, it's going to be at 1. This is going to be really nice for your 32-bit maps. I'd love to see what you guys do there, but let's talk about mid first. In Maya, displacement is really one way. 0 displacement equals black, and 100% displacement equals white. Okay, now that is great if what you've got is a bunch of stuff that's kind of on the surface. But what happens when part of your model retreats inwards? How do you represent that part that pushes in? Well, the way ZBrush calculates things is that 0 displacement equals 50% gray. And then it'll go up and it'll go down. So that's why this background is gray. That's why mid value is 0.5. And that's why inside of Maya, we take the alpha gain and then we divide that by -0.5. So we need to take what is essentially 2.5 units, right? And then they're at 0 displacement and 100% displacement. And we need to shift that downwards so that 0 displacement equals 50% gray. And we are able to get something that's going to go in and out, in and out. So that alpha offset basically moves this entire 2.5 units into the negative space, which just allows us to use 50% gray. I'm sure you're already well aware of that. If you're not, just let us know in chat or anything if we can help. Smooth UV. I remember talking to a friend of mine working in, I think he was working in Toronto, Canada. He had spent an entire week testing things in RenderMan and ZBrush and just going, why isn't this working? And he spent an entire week doing displacement tests, unable to get ZBrush to work in RenderMan until he clicked this one button, Smooth UVs. Now, I'm not going to show you in terms of the an actual like UV map per se, but Smooth UV is going to have, there's two things that you've got to think about and you're going to have to battle. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat that there is no silver bullet. I wish there was, because I know Smooth UV is something that can cause people a lot of headaches. But in terms of your UVs, when at render time, we give those approximation editors, basically. Those approximation editors divide your model, right? They divide it at render time. And that means that they've got to divide your UVs. So if you do not divide UVs, everybody knows, you know, UVs, you could see a UV for a cube just like this. And then let's just give it another round of stuff. So you could have some kind of screw that's got a UV. When you smooth them, you can either smooth the border. Well, actually, I'll just say it. There's two things you can smooth. You can smooth the border. You can smooth the interior. Those are the two different things to smooth. And different programs smooth different things. Some will smooth the border, some will smooth the interior. Some will smooth both. If you smooth only the interior, then most likely what happens is that these guys just start to shift down like that, and everything just shifts a little bit and kind of moves in. If you smooth the border and the interior, then even this border itself will smooth in, and basically this whole thing would kind of shrink down into this smaller unit. And that could be kind of very problematic, you know, because if you have Smooth UV on in ZBrush, but then Mental Ray doesn't have Smooth UV on, your maps are not going to line up. And I need to reiterate, there is no silver bullet, and there is no setting for border and interior, only interior and border. So there is a how do I say it? There is a black hole you can fall into with Smooth UVs where you just need to do them differently, where maybe ZBrush is not going to be the answer. And to be honest, I think Pixelogic is fine with that. There are a lot of tools inside of Maya. There's a lot of tools inside of Max that allow you to bring models in and work with them, work with the ray casting options inside of those programs. And that's just that. You know, it's a complicated beast. I remember I worked with I don't know how many companies trying to make this Smooth UV, the flip, the adaptive, the 30-bit, the 32-bit, the 3-channel, and The one fundamental problem we have is that RenderMan will decide something one way, Maya will decide it another way, Mental Ray will basically Maya will implement Mental Ray one way, XSI would implement Mental Ray another way. So it was too problematic for us, and is just a continued issue for people. If you're talking normal maps, you render them here, as Nate will show you, but you also render them in X-normal. There's a lot of options. And Jeff, Modo and ZBrush. Modo's a little, they're a little tighter of a development team, so they may have integrated better with ZBrush because that was a lot cooler for their business model. Like they wanted to integrate with other cool apps. Maya, you know, is part of Autodesk market capitalization, and not so much. Modo, you know, and ZBrush, you know, they're the cool kids on the block. Maya's the landlord, so they don't got to be cool. All right. Did I give you enough information? If you need more, you can ask here, but also don't forget, we're here for you. And email support is the best way, or email Nate is the best way. Just inundate him with emails. He's listening to me, so he knows what's happening. Johannes, if we run into trouble with UVs, are there solutions for displacements like the X-normal software? Johannes, Maya does have its own solution. It's called a surface transfer, or transfer surface something or another. I've forgotten it. But it is, you know, it is pretty robust. It takes some time, but it's pretty robust. Alrighty, guys. I'm going to switch this over to Nate, where he can explain to you normal maps and Decimation Master. Okay, and then he's going to wrap up the session and call it a day. And so I just want to thank you guys. I'm going to be around. You have lifetime access to this, as long as you know that's part of our plan, and as long as that's possible. You know, any future certification, you know, you're in, and we're here for you. And also, we'll be getting your names up on the site, and we'll be contacting you guys with all the kind of information for where we want to go. I really want to thank you for spending the time with me and for being part of this. And you know, we've got a lot of people in this class, and that's a really great thing for the community, Pixelogic, and for us. So we'll just keep doing that. And also, as a reminder, if you're viewing this live, the tests are going to go out next week. This week was pretty crazy with my son. Decided to develop a cold at 7 days old. It's really, really scary. So, alrighty guys, he's better now. I'm going to give you to Nate, and we're going to go from there.